Okay.
Now go. I'm Mikayla.
Okay. I'm Mikayla, and I am a mother of two beautiful girls, and I am a wife, and I'm a full-time working mom, and um, I'm busy. I love my animals. I know, different things, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
who I am.
Mikayla is joining us all the way from Windsor, Ontario. So a couple hours away from me, and we coached online together. Now, Mikayla, when you first came to me, you were kind of like at your wits' end. You had somebody else who had gone through the coaching journey who was sharing their experience with you, and you came to me and you had three goals. One is that you had a mindset that was you were either on or off a diet. You were either doing really well or not doing really well, and you were finding that exhausting. Two, you wanted to lose weight. You'd had lots of success before losing weight, but then it always came back. And three, you wanted to be stronger. So can you just paint a picture for women, like where you were at that very first day when we had that call? Were you ready to do this?
Yeah, so when I came to you, I was probably at, a very low point and feeling, embarrassed about who I was and how I looked and how I felt. I didn't really have any confidence. And I remember I cried a lot with you on the call. So, um, but, you know, like you said, I've done previous um, programs before, and it was very like I was in it and I was doing everything, not perfectly, but I was able to meet those goals. And then I wasn't taking care of the mindset and I fell off, and I keep ending up back at the same spot basically. So I was ready to try the mindset because that was the other thing that the person was saying was it's different. It's different than any other program you've ever done because they're focusing on mindset. I've never ever focused on mindset before. So I was willing to try. I was like, what do I have to lose? So that's kind of where I started at, and was ready to try something different. So
And that's a bit of a different mindset because a lot of women say, I've tried it all, nothing works. It's my metabolism, it's my hormones, or I'm destined to be this way, or it's like I'm a good starter, I'm not a good finisher. Like that's the common message. And you had that same kind of mindset as well. Like it's working for everybody else, it's not working for me. Can you talk a little bit about that mindset?
um yeah, so with that, meaning like before I started or after I
Yeah.
started?
Because
Before I started.
you had all of those like that mindset talk that everybody else is having, but then something said, well, what do I have to lose? How do you get there?
Yeah, I don't know. I just like said, I was at my wit's end. I was
Yeah.
done, wasn't happy. Again, I have two younger daughters, and I wanted to be like a good role model for them. That was another like driving thing for me. I wanted to be able to run, walk with them, bike with them, teach them how to be healthy and
Yeah.
better kind of thing. So,
So here's the cool thing about working with Mikayla is like she really did have a lot of know-how in terms of nutrition. She really had a lot of information. She just needed help putting it into a plan that fit into the context of her life that wasn't all or nothing. She needed to know how to make it fit into my life because I have a job, I have two kids, I'm married, and how to fit it in so that it wasn't this stop start all or nothing on off the diet. So she had a gap there. And in terms of exercise, she had a lot of know-how too. It was just now, it was like, how do I do that so it's not, I'm so focused on this at the detriment of this over here. So in terms of nutrition and exercise, we were able to move really quick from what she knew and what she was doing. We were able to close that gap. And the cool thing about coaching is you get to troubleshoot in real time and close that gap a lot faster than you. So let's just break it down. In terms of all the other diets that you've tried in terms of nutrition, what was different about nutrition that's gone to you where you are now?
I think for the most part, the difference is, being not as restrictive. Like every other program I've done has been very restrictive. The whole no carbs, no sugar, so on and so on. So I feel like that's very different with where this program has gone as well. I think the mindful eating, eating slowly, listening to my body cues, you know, refocusing, um, like when I'm hungry, when I'm full, because I lost that. I lost the feeling of fullness and I've lost the feeling of being hungry kind of thing. Like I wasn't aware of my body. So I think that has been a huge game changer this time around.
And I remember when we introduced sugar in,
Yeah.
when we were working on, and you had a lot of self-talk about it, like I shouldn't be eating this doesn't fit into my plan, all my other diets. And here I was saying, you're going to report it to me, you're going to let me know what you're having, and then what fears or what thoughts are coming up so we can kind of work. So can you talk about that experience there? Because I think that a lot of women still have that, I can't eat that stuff, I can't do it. And then here you are having a coach that's like, let's do it. How did you get there?
Yeah. From the very beginning, my relationship with food has been good versus bad. So to me, that has always been bad. Sugar has always been bad, and it won't get you to the point where you want to go. But again, um, just like with everything that we've done, mindset, eating it slowly, mindfully, all the coaching that we've done, I was able to, give myself a little bit more grace and say it's okay, like it's okay. I think I remember too, I was going for dinner and I made these different like cookies and they were like less sugar. And I remember you having that conversation and you were like, why did you create something different? Why didn't you eat the other dessert that was there? And I was like, yeah, because I've always I've always been taught this. I've always known this. So I remember having that conversation and yeah, I don't know. Again, the mindset was a big thing and I was able just to give myself a little bit of grace and be like, it's okay. You're gonna be okay. Yeah.
Which allowed you
Eat
to
it slowly.
Yeah, which has allowed you to have ice cream this summer with your kids and not feel guilty, not feel like you ruined the diet, like enjoying the experience. And I do remember when we kind of break it down, you were kind of like, I really enjoyed it. I was really present in the moment. It was weird not to have like those guilt feelings or feel like I was blowing it. That was all a
Yeah.
new space for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, okay, so then we had two binge episodes that I remember
Mhm.
when we were coaching together. And that was kind of like your norm before coaching is like something disruptive happened. So let's say it was an argument with your husband or some sort of trigger happened. Somebody said something or somebody did something. And then you would go into a binge eating episode. And it did happen within our coaching program. But what was different this time that wasn't there before? I know the frequency is different, but what was different this time?
Well, yeah, I was binging basically because I was avoiding like the conflict. I don't like the conflict. And this time around, like when it was happening or when it did happen, I gave myself a lot more space. I remember I went for a long, long, long walk and reflected, the whole time. And that also was able just, to calm me down a bit and put things back into like focus. Like, you know, what do I need to happen here in order to fix this? So when it wasn't food, it was talking it through, right? So again, it goes back to the whole mindset thing, but giving myself the space, I think was the biggest thing, and reflecting on it. So,
One of the things that we always did was it was a brand new day, right? It was a brand new opportunity. The next meal was a brand new opportunity. And then the next day was always brand new. Whereas before you would binge eat and you would carry that with you, or you'd then be all or nothing again, right? Really restricted the next time. Whereas this one, it was like grace was really about like the next opportunity. That's your opportunity to claim back control. And so it made your binge eating shorter.
yes,
And then as you said, as you were dealing with what you were trying to avoid, they became less frequent than they were before.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was having those conversations.
Yeah. Okay. So then the other obstacle that we worked through was social settings. So
Mm.
food pushers, people who had different ideas about weight loss or what it takes, or people who commented on, let's say, your weight or what you were eating or what have you, or just you not feeling like you belonged in a certain circle. And then that would cause more feelings of anxiety, and then that would cause more feelings of wanting to eat. Can you just talk about that, how that start, where that was at, and then kind of where how we worked through that?
Yeah. So, well, I think, all my life I was picked on, I was bullied, and um, I never really dealt with those feelings as far as that goes. So anytime I went into a social setting, I constantly felt like I was being judged by everybody and or looked down upon kind of thing. So I'd spend a lot of time, eating, drinking to cover it up, to avoid it. And I remember telling you about it, and then we did the glasses exercise, taking the glasses off, and we did a lot of talking about it, and journaling, and I started therapy as well with it because it has taken over a big part of my life, or it did. It's better now, but it did. So that's yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So here we are at the end. We've actually finished coaching a while ago. You extended beyond the 12 weeks because you were like, I really want to ingrain this. I really want this to be part of who I am. And you continued with counseling. So now
Yes.
here we are. So we went through the dieting approach, avoiding all things, being really restricted, more binging and more. And here we are now. What's the now look like with food?
um like I just I just feel like I don't know, I feel more happier with the way things are. I don't feel as, stressed out. I don't feel as good versus bad. I'm proud of how far I've come. I mean, it's different. Like the now is much better than what it was. I have more confidence. I've learned a lot about myself.
And you're
And
eating
I'm
all things.
and I'm eating all things, all things. I have not gone without with anything. And we talked about went on vacation as well, and I didn't go without. So I didn't, and I don't feel that way, and um, it's been good. So I feel like this is something that I can do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to exercise. So exercise was the same thing. You were very all or nothing with exercise as well, on, off. How did we start off with exercise?
I started walking. We started walking, and gradually we built up the steps over a few weeks to start. And I've always liked weights and lifting weights, so that wasn't hard for me to like get into that groove.
I
But
did
in
need
the
to convince you to buy heavier weights,
You
though.
did need to convince me to buy heavier weights. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I've always wanted to run. I've always wanted to do a 5K, and so that was like one of the goals that I set up with you, and was able to achieve and stuff. But yeah, so we started off just by walking and reaching those steps, and now walking is like a part of my habit. I do it every day almost, like so, and I enjoy it. It's a time for me to clear my head, have space, reflect, and get those steps in. So that's the
Yeah.
biggest, yeah, start.
Great, because you painted this picture of how it was gradual, right? We started walking, we increased your steps, and then all of a sudden you're like, I want to go back into the weight training. You weren't doing it every day. You were gradually building up from there. You gradually got stronger, so you needed heavier weights. And then all of a sudden you hit me with, I want to start running. And so then it was figuring out, well, how to make that all work. So it didn't become all or nothing again. It felt balanced, it felt doable. It wasn't taking away from a different area of your life, and then gradually building up. And you did do the 5K.
Yes, I did do the 5K.
And you're planning another one.
I'm planning another one. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift to mindset now, because mindset, when you first started, there were a couple things that I wrote down as my in my notes from our first meeting. Is one, when you felt stressed, you shut down, and that's when emotional eating happened. You had an all or nothing kind of mindset, so that meant that you were putting pressure on yourself to be perfect. You were people pleasing. You were catering to everyone else, caring for everyone else, but you weren't giving yourself the same intensity or same attention. And that you never felt good enough. And that you always felt like you were comparing yourself to others. So that's what we mean when we say mindset. That's what Mikayla's tripwires were. Because remember, I said in the beginning, it was like she had a lot of exercise know-how, she had a lot of nutrition know-how. We just had to piece it in a way that made sense to her, that fit into her lifestyle, and then cut out some of the other stuff that didn't make sense for her. We were looking at bigger picture things. But you've been through this whole interview, you've been talking about mindset, and that's where you're at. So I think mindset is like this big word. Most people think, well, just do the nutrition and exercise thing, then I'll figure out the mindset piece. Or mindset has nothing to do with it. It's just like, I just need more discipline. I just need more willpower. I just need to be stricter with myself. I just need to do it, right? Or it's like, hey, that diet really worked. Drinking those shakes really worked. And it's like, I stopped doing them, but I'm going to go back to them to be that hardcore person. So I just think it would be really good for us to step back and for you to paint a picture of like, what does mindset mean when you're trying to lose weight? How do you work through the all or nothing, the people pleasing, the never good enough, the comparing to other? How do you do all that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, obviously it was one, that I struggle with, still working on, but I again with like the coaching that we did, and I know like you asked me a million questions all the time about things, and I'm like, why is she asking me this question? And I have to think about it. I'm like, let me just take a few hours, I'll reflect and I'll get back to you on that because no one's ever asked me those questions. I've never asked myself those questions, like to dig deeper. I've never dug deeper ever. So this time we were digging deeper, and again, like doing with the therapy and hand in hand, both of those, they've kind of helped. I've given myself a lot more like grace, because there's a lot of guilt and shame that goes in with the binge sessions, and um, but I've learned a lot, and I've I've got a lot more habits that I've learned, and I'm able to pick myself back up and just remind myself that you're doing a good job and just keep going, kind of thing. So I
That's
don't
a
know.
definitely a different voice in your head. We always call her Wicked Wendy or whatever. Yeah, and so
Yes.
that's a different voice in your head than where you were. How so? If you think about like Wicked Wendy, when is where you first started, why was she not serving you well? Like, because I think most people think like if I'm more drill sergeant, if I'm more bully, if I'm harder on myself, then I'll achieve those things. But that wasn't working for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't working for me. Wicked Wendy would come out, but and I think that was kind of part of the conversation that you and I had, is like, how is this serving you now? Like how is it helping you? I got caught up a lot on wondering and worrying, and again, it wasn't something that was helping me because it was out of my control, some of the stuff that I was worrying about, kind of thing. So yeah.
Some of the things that you were worrying with were not even true. Like, walking
Mm.
into a room and other people judging you, like nobody was looking at you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was creating a story. And I think, again, we had that conversation about like, well, where's your proof? Like, like, where's your evidence? Like, why do you, so and I thought about it differently, like with the glasses, and I'm like, you're right. I'm making the story kind of in my head here. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So here is probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, where the unexpected part is. So you're thinking, okay, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to get this mindset thing going, and I'm going to feel stronger. And you're thinking, I'm going to do this nutrition thing and I can do this exercise thing because you know how to follow rules. You know how to follow the plan. You're very good at following the plan until something
Yes.
happens in life and it throws you off the plan. So you're very
Yes.
good. So we kind of didn't have a doubt that that was how you were going to approach it. We did need to work through how to do it so that it wasn't perfect, so it wasn't all or nothing, because we didn't want that one thing to enter into your life and throw you off your game plan. But the thing that I think you didn't expect, correct me if I'm wrong, is discovering who you were. That you really, even though you have two kids, you're married, you have a career, you really didn't know who you were.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was being somebody for everybody else. Like I wasn't being true to myself. I changed myself for a lot of people, family, friends, coworkers, to please them. So through all of the coaching and all of the therapy, and those questions, I was able to, find a voice basically, and like learn how to set boundaries and put myself as a priority, and take care of myself, kind of thing. So and then once I figured that out, it felt good, and I was able to feel more confident in who I was, and how I wanted to be. And yeah, and I constantly listen to all the podcasts that you send me, and those were extremely helpful as well. So I keep pushing myself to experience all those things that have been helpful.
And it wasn't all easy, like it wasn't all smooth sailing, because I do remember when we had to articulate your first boundary, you and I had to do some role playing and work through it, do a vision exercise on who you wanted to be after you came through. And then at the end you came through and you're like, I did it. I did it. And then from there it was like, then it became easier to do the next one and the next one and the next one. Because the first one was where you felt most vulnerable. You didn't have your confidence or your proof yet. And now you had your proof. And now it made it easier to do the next one. And I like how you said, like, you're trying to be true to who you are, but it's hard to be true to who you are when you don't know who you are and you're on to everybody else's kind of plan.
Yes. Yeah.
So then how does finding out who you are, being true to you are, how does that play into weight loss? Like what's the connection between those two things?
um well, it goes back to, by being true to yourself, you're not people pleasing. You're putting yourself as a priority. You're focusing on the things that you want in your life, and not comparing. And yeah, so
Then how does that affect relationships? Because I think sometimes when we do weight loss, we think about it like we are in the all or nothing or the dieting plan. And so then we think, I'll just do this for 30 days or do this for 60 days. And then all this stuff starts to like unravel or fall apart, right? And for you, you're doing it while you're maintaining your lifestyle or what have you. So how does that, when you find you live within your true self, you're feeling in alignment, and it then is connected to your weight loss, the nutrition choices you make, your exercise, showing up for yourself, making yourself a priority, how does that then change your relationships? Because I think it's easy to get caught up that it all happens in a silo. It happens over here and all this other stuff happens over here. But for you, it's happening all together in one place.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So my relationships have changed with everybody, really. I've been able to, like I said, set those boundaries and focus on what is serving me, and looking at it differently that way. But ultimately knowing that these my family, my friends, they love me for who I am, and so I don't need to change who I am, like, for them. So
Yeah. And I love too, because we also had a discussion about it made you more present. Like I just think about you hanging out with your kids this summer. It's like you're a more present parent. And even date night with your husband, you're more present.
yes, yeah, Yeah, absolutely.
That's huge because you were always so caught up in wondering and worrying in future and how this was going to affect this, and here you are just being.
Yes. Being, doing, present,
Yeah.
peace.
And even
Yeah.
just like if I like if I took the recording of the first call and I took the recording to now, it's like a totally different, like your level of energy is shifted to this one being more like present and more calm and just more in alignment, whereas this one was like a more anxious kind of energy that was happening.
Yes, for sure.
It's great to witness.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for everything.
So, okay, so as we wrap up today's training, yours was a lot about mindset, and I know the heading was all about people pleasing as well, which goes back to what we just talked about finding your true self. So, I always end the interview by asking if there was one piece of advice you can give to a woman who's just starting or feels like they've tried everything, or basically just feels like the way you kind of outlined for us is where you started. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say like considering it was my biggest thing would be to work on the mindset. Um, because that ultimately is what has helped me the most, be able to, keep going and getting back up every day and trying again and not giving up on myself. So I think it would be like put in the time, the effort to work on the mindset. So and giving yourself grace and making yourself a priority and loving on you. So
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I love that it's like it's mindset while you're doing it, not mindset after you're done it. Because that's how it sticks to who you are, not just what you do. Does that make sense? Did I say that right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
you're changed.
yeah.
Do you have any fear about going back to your old ways?
Um, we talked about that at our very end call, and I said, I'm scared about this, and we talked about it. And then you're like, so tell me what will you do? Like if that happens? And I'm like, well, I'll just keep doing what I've been doing. Like I won't let that happen because I have all these habits. I've done all this work. So I feel like, I have a better grasp on it and I'll be able to pick myself up if something does come up or life happens, right? And just keep going. So and be a little bit kinder to myself. So in the
Yeah.
process, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for giving us your time today, sharing your story. I know that it's nerve-wracking to do it, and I know that it can be vulnerable as well. But it's truly inspiring for other women to hear the stories of other women who have gone from struggle to overcoming that struggle to see that it's possible for them. So if you're here live, you can give us a thumbs up to say thanks to Mikayla. And if you're here on the replay, you can do the exact same thing too, just to say, hey, Mikayla, I hear you, I see you, and I'm raising a thumbs up to you as well. So thanks, Mikayla, for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Is
How's that?
it done?
Yes, it's done.
Oh